More shocking revelations are emerging about disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Colmes, this time involving allegations that he attacked staff members of his son's football team. We're going to dive into how this incident fits into the growing pattern of violence associated with the embattled rapper and how it might fit into his criminal case. And we're going to bring on acclaimed civil and criminal attorney Mauricio Padilla to break it down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, we are back with even more Sean Diddy Colmes drama, as the scandal-ridden media mogul is also alleged to have put his son's UCLA football coach in a headlock, even choked an intern during a 2015 altercation. Now, this is all according to new documents that were obtained by the Los Angeles Times. And here's what the documents detail. We're going to break it down. So Colmes, who was watching his son Justin, he was a defensive back on the team during a practice session. He was watching him, and he apparently took issue with the way that the coach, Sal Alyssa, was treating his son. Reportedly, Alyssa had pulled Justin from the field for the whole summer. So this prompted Colmes and Justin to confront Alyssa at his office, which was apparently near the weight room at the UCLA facility. Some words were exchanged, things got heated, things got escalated, and according to the document, a physical altercation ensued, where, quote, Colmes approached the coach and physically assaulted him, causing some minor scratches and tearing his shirt. But apparently it didn't stop there, because this stirred up enough commotion that eventually staff members were alerted. They rushed into the office to try to pull Colmes off of Alyssa. And at some point, as I mentioned, not only did Colmes allegedly try to choke an intern, but Colmes also allegedly swung a kettlebell at the staff members. And this is where they say that Colmes focused his attention on that intern, who reportedly sustained some scratches as well. Now, Colmes, of course, was arrested for the incident after campus cops showed up. You can see the booking sheet here, and he was charged with 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count of making threats, and another count of battery. Now, he denied any wrongdoing, and his representative issued a statement reading, "The various accounts of the events and charges that are being reported are wholly inaccurate. What we can say now is that any actions taken by Mr. Colmes were solely defensive in nature to protect himself and his son." And what's interesting about that is that Colmes' son, Justin, also took to social media to defend his father, writing, "I thank God for having a father that always is there for me. Love you, Pops." By the way, Justin had joined the UCLA team back in 2011, but that didn't come without its own set of controversy, because we learned the following year that he was offered a $54,000 scholarship, which he accepted, leaving people to question whether he should have even been offered that in the first place. I will tell you, though, that Justin Colmes tweeted at the time, "Regardless what the circumstances are, I put that work in, period." Hey, I just want to take a quick minute to call out our sponsor, Upside, because with their support, we're able to continue producing these episodes on Sean Colmes for you. And look, Upside's awesome, all right? I think you're going to love this one, because how would you feel about getting cash back when you buy gas, groceries, food, real cash back? It's money that appears in your Upside app that you can then transfer right into your bank account. I'll give you an example. I used Upside to find a gas station. I claimed an offer, paid with my credit card at the pump, followed the steps on the app, got cash back. Super simple to use. You can use Upside at all different kinds of places, restaurants, convenience stores. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, or scan the QR code on screen and use our promo code SIDEBAR, and you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Hope you can check it out. Now back to Sean Colmes, going back to this. We know that he has had issues, or allegations of issues, with violence for a while that go back much further than the 2015 incident. Remember the 1999 nightclub shooting in New York, when the rapper, when he was dating pop singer Jennifer Lopez, Colmes was hit with various charges, weapons charges, during that dispute that wounded 3 bystanders. There was a bribery charge for allegedly trying to pay off a chauffeur to take the fall for it, but he was later acquitted of those charges. And that same year, he was arrested for his involvement in the beating of former Interscope executive Steve Stout out in New York. He apologized for this. The charges were reduced. He was ordered to attend an anger management class. And of course, we can't discuss Sean Colmes' past history of violence without bringing up the current dangerous hot water he is in for racketeering, sex trafficking charges, these federal charges he's facing in New York. And he's currently sitting in a Brooklyn detention center as he awaits trial next May. Now, the allegations date back to 2008, 2009. They accuse Colmes of abusing, threatening, coercing women for years to essentially fulfill his sexual desires, to be quiet about this, to protect his reputation. He's also been accused of arranging freak-offs, which are described as these elaborate sexual performances that he is alleged to have recorded, even watched and pleasured himself to. And Colmes, as we know, was slapped with a lot of lawsuits since November of 2023, but now he's been hit with all these new lawsuits. In fact, on Monday, you have now 6 more people who are accusing him of abuse, including an underage victim and a man who worked at Macy's in New York City. These suits were filed on behalf of 2 women and 4 men. They're part of 120 accusers who recently came forward against the hip-hop mogul. One claim alleges that Colmes molested a man at the singer's 1998 white party in the Hamptons. Another victim, identified as a John Doe, claimed that he was forced to perform oral sex on Colmes in the stockroom of the Macy's flagship store in May of 2008. The former employee alleges that he was working in the Macy's concession of Echo Clothing, that he was inside the stockroom when Colmes and his bodyguards entered, allegedly struck him in the back of his neck, and then forced him to perform oral sex on Sean Colmes. And remember where his arrest and all these ensuing lawsuits trace back to. And that's that lawsuit that was filed last year in November of 2023 by Colmes' ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura, in which she claimed that she was beaten, raped, sex trafficked by the media mogul. Colmes quickly settled that lawsuit a day after it became public, but he couldn't escape the glaring video surveillance that turned up on CNN this year, showing him attacking Ventura in a hotel hallway. That was mentioned in his indictment. Now, since we've been talking about Justin Colmes, I also want to remind you that he's entangled in a civil suit as well. This one filed by Rodney Jones, also known as producer Little Rod. In that suit, he names Justin Colmes specifically, describing him as someone who, quote, solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers. You can even see in this part of the filing a picture of Justin Colmes allegedly with an underage girl. Now, Jones is alleging in this specific instance that at least one underage girl came to Diddy's home for what was called a listening party, and seemingly a freak-off ensued. Justin Colmes is listed here as a defendant because, according to Jones, he facilitated Diddy's alleged racketeering ring and even at times participated in this. So with all this in mind, I want to bring on a special guest to break all this down. Criminal and civil trial attorney Mauricio Padilla. Talk more about this. Mauricio, so good to see you. Thanks for coming back here on Sidebar.
Good seeing you. Thanks for having me.
Got a lot to unpack here. I think the first place to start with is with this 2015 football incident. What do you make of it, and what do you make of it coming out now?
I think what it is it's the government continuing to portray him as someone that's willing to do anything for his son. I'm hearing now allegations of yacht parties that he threw for his son, that he may have drugged women to for them to be able to have sex with his son or to make them better guests for these yacht parties. So I think it's consistent with, he's a guy that attacked a coach in 2015 because he was upset at his son. This is the same kind of guy that would be willing to give drugs to women or to do whatever he can to make his son have a better time. Or I think it's consistent with, he's not a regular father. He's this type of father, the type of father that would attack somebody in 2015, the type of father that would bring prostitutes to his son's parties. So I think it's consistent with tearing him down, his person down, his character down, especially as a father, since, as you stated, Justin is part of this case.
The one thing I have to ask, though, is the timing of this. I am not entirely clear why this is being reported now, why the LA Times has this now. Perhaps but I have to tell you, I think it's very interesting when you consider Sean Colmes is fighting bail. He's trying to make bail. He's trying to get out of pretrial detention. And one of the critical factors in deciding that is, are you a danger to the public? Are you a violent individual? And at the time, he was appealing this bail because he's been denied bail twice by 2 different judges. He was appealing this to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. He actually just filed a motion to pause that appeal because now he's going to go back to the new judge who's overseeing this case, Judge Arun Subramanian, and try to get a 3rd attempt at bail. So he's fighting it on different levels. Isn't it interesting that this past incident comes out as we're talking about his ability to make pretrial detention?
It is interesting, and it's just consistent with the type of propaganda that if the government really has it in for you, that they're capable of doing. Why? Because at some level, an appellate court judge, a trial court judge is trying to make a determination on whether or not Sean Colmes is a danger to the community. So what do they got? They got a guy that when they raided his mansion, he had 3 machine guns with altered serial numbers. Now you tie that into, well, okay, he had these machine guns with altered serial numbers. Yeah, but is he really violent? Well, look, in 2015, he's the kind of guy that's swinging kettlebells. So it is the type of information that can affect a judge, that can affect anybody that's making a determination in this case. And I don't think it's something that's never been seen before, but I think it's something that's reserved for those individuals that the government really has it out for.
Do you think a 2015 incident like this, the football incident, would come into his criminal case, or would it not be relevant? It's not a freak off. Is it evidence of racketeering? I mean, you tell me.
I'm talking about as informally as it could possibly be. I'm talking about an appellate court judge that caught wind of it peripherally. It could be a determining factor in a judge that hears about it. I'm not saying that he's going to hear about it formally. I'm talking about judges look at the news like everybody else does. It's just something that's out there.
Oh, let me correct. Do you think it's going to be introduced actually as a piece of evidence at his criminal trial in May? Not about the bail issue. I'm talking, will jurors hear about this?
No. In my opinion, no. He was never convicted of it. I don't think that, but for the purposes of, if a judge is making the determination on his bail, I think it's something that a judge could hear about. I don't even know if it could be formally introduced in that arena, because he was never convicted of it, right?
He also wasn't convicted or charged with respect to the Cassandra Ventura video. The statute of limitations ran on that. He wasn't charged with assault. So I wonder if they could bring up alleged incidents where he was never formally charged or convicted, but it shows evidence of his violent tendency. And the way I was thinking about it, and you tell me if I'm completely off, one of the big things I think defense counsel will raise is, why are all these people coming after Sean Colmes now, right? You could say they're all looking for a payday, they're all coming out, but the other argument for the prosecution be he tried to beat up his son's football coach, he was involved in X, Y, and Z, he always was able to skirt the law. People who had these accusations against him probably were concerned, he's got so much power, we're not going to go after him. We can't do this. He never is going to be held accountable. I wonder, so my question to you are, A, do you think that it could come into evidence? And B, is that a way it could come into evidence, the way I tied it?
It can come into evidence the way that you're describing it, but also, like in court, they say that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So a prosecutor could be making an argument and just flat out blurt it out. Judge, we have information that in 2015, he attacked the coach of Justin and was swinging around kettlebells or anything else. And then, the defense can object. Objection, judge, that he was never convicted of that, but it's already out there. It's out there in the media. It's out there in the mind of the judge. So, that's the type of, trickery or the type of gamesmanship that one would expect in a case of this magnitude. Because this case keeps growing. Every day, it keeps growing bigger and bigger.
Talk to me about Justin Colmes. So, as I mentioned, he's a part of this Rodney Jones lawsuit. There is a question I think a lot of people have. Could he be criminally charged? Is the government looking at him in any which way? Is he going to be a cooperating witness against his father? When you think about all these things that are now surrounding Justin Colmes, what do you take away from it?
Well, okay, it's no secret that the government's secret weapon against any defendant is superseding indictments that involve your family, because they know that most people love nothing more than their children. So for the government to indict you is one thing, and for you to be incarcerated is one thing, but for you to have the looming threat that the person that you love most in this world is going to get indicted, the person that you love most in this world is going to get incarcerated, that's something that I see often in cases that don't involve celebrities. In a case like this, I would expect it. And why would I expect it? Is because the type of behavior that the indictment outlines that Mr. Colmes has been part of since, they say, I think going back to 2009, that illustrates that a type of conduct that I think Justin has been part of his whole life. So Justin may think it's okay to, hire a prostitute and cross state lines and have these drug-fueled orgies and pay people for drugs and have people mule drugs on a private plane from point A to point B. So one would expect that he's mimicking his father's behavior and has probably cannonballed into this particular indictment. So I would be shocked if we don't see him dragged into it.
A couple of things there. One, how does it work in a criminal case when you're dealing with family members? Does Justin, do prosecutors call in Justin before a trial, hear what he has to say, and know whether or not what kind of witness he's going to be? Assuming I'm putting aside the fact whether they would want to charge him or he's implicated. Do they call him in and find out what he has to say about this? Does he lawyer up and say, I'm not going to cooperate with you? And then they just call him as a witness at trial, and he may reveal information, he may plead the fifth. How does that usually work?
Well, the prosecutors could, if they wanted to, drag him into a grand jury situation where he can, have a lawyer, but the lawyer would be outside like many other grand jury witnesses. They could choose not to and interview a host of other people about him. I think at this point, he probably already is lawyered up. I understand that he was detained, if not arrested, when they raided one of the mansions. So
he was
I
detained.
would be shocked.
He was detained, not arrested, but yeah.
I would be shocked if at this point they haven't, stated that he has his own independent counsel, because I'm sure everybody's expecting what I'm saying. People are expecting, his conduct is part of this case. We already know that the government I'm not going to say enjoys, but uses family members of defendants in many different situations. So, I'm pretty sure that he already has an attorney. And at some point, it's up to the prosecutors. They could, try and interview him themselves, or they could say, listen, we don't need to. We've interviewed all these other people. We got enough on you. You're not the target. And then what they do in superseding indictments is all of a sudden, it may be Justin, it may be 5 other people, it may be 10 other people. And then one morning at 5 a.m, everybody gets roped up. And that's when the indictment gets released. And all of a sudden 10 more defendants in the Sean Colmes case.
Let me ask you this. I asked this to Nadia Shihada, who's a former federal prosecutor. She put R. Kelly away. Mm-hmm. I said, would it be possible that prosecutors would say to Sean Colmes, listen, we're about to indict your son, Justin. If you want to get out of that, if you want to make sure that doesn't happen, you take a plea deal right now. You take a plea deal to what you're charged with. We won't charge him. Is that totally outside the realm of possibility?
No, it's not outside the realm of possibility, and it's something that you see often. I mean, I've seen it in narco cases. You see it, and I would expect for it to happen, especially if, and we've had this discussion before, especially if they have their eye on other people beyond Sean Colmes. So we also had this conversation previously. Who would the government be after? Number one, politicians. Any politician that's had any type of social relationship, professional relationship with Sean Colmes is in their crosshairs. And then media executives that are beyond Sean Colmes, the billionaire owners of.
But do they need Sean Colmes for that? Don't they have this all documented on videos and text messages and witness testimony? I was always wondering, what value would a Sean Colmes be as a government witness?
Well, the value is, imagine how powerful it is when he says himself, I took prostitutes to his ranch in Wyoming because he asked me to. Yeah. So no matter what, extrinsic evidence, whatever forensic evidence, whatever you have, nothing is better than Sean Colmes himself saying, he asked me to do it. So it ties everything together. Someone like him could really tie everything together. And I'm sure this is an issue that I have. If he was sloppy enough to have the altered machine guns at his house, that means that he didn't care about cleaning up at all. Because at the moment of the raid, he was already sufficiently heated up to do some spring cleaning, if you will, and get some stuff out of his house. If he had the machine guns in there, that means his cell phones, his hard drives are probably chock full of incriminating evidence. And now he's the kind of person that, even though you have the incriminating evidence, he could really put a bow on it for prosecutors regarding other people.
Mauricio Padilla, so good to see you. Thanks so much for breaking it down with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Good to see you, man.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.